Today on the Fit Dads podcast, we're joined by world-class nutritionist Shane Nugent to talk about what most find quite a challenging combination: parenthood and food. He's the founder of Quantum Nutrition, a doctoral researcher, and a graduate of the International Olympic Committee. Shane not only has a wealth of nutrition knowledge and experience, but he's also a husband and a dad to 3 boys. So he gets it, he understands the struggles that parents go through day in, day out with their own kids and with their own relationship with food. So whether you're at the weaning stage, dealing with fussy eaters, or minesweeping the remaining food from your kids' dinner plate, today Shane's here to give his expert advice. So welcome to the Fit Dads podcast, Shane Nugent.
Pleasure to be here.
And Shane, great to know, mate. I think, just reiterating what Brad said, I think you are hopefully going to fill in the gaps for a lot of our audience when it comes to kids and parents and just that real kind of, how do you describe it, like a bit of a missing puzzle for a lot of people, isn't it? You know, when it comes to, getting in shape themselves, having their kids following good footsteps. A lot of my questions, I think, for you are based around those topics. So, let's get into it today.
Amazing.
Sounds good.
For the sake of the audience, Shane, do you want to tell us a little bit about you, what got you maybe into the industry, and why you do what you do?
Yeah, definitely. So I've always, since sort of degree level, I've always studied nutrition, to within some element. And then I went on to study with the Olympic Committee, like you mentioned there. It was like a really unique opportunity to go onto that course there. So that was really good, working with some of the best lecturers in the world on nutrition. And I could see a big difference, between what we were being told there based on the research, and then, you sort of go on the other side of the door and you see the real world on Instagram and stuff like that, and the advice there is not the same as the advice here. So, even at those sort of early stages, I was like, maybe there's something we can do just to sort of help people understand the science of nutrition in a little bit more depth, and not just listen to their auntie's recommendations or the local hairdresser or something like that, which is what a lot of people do. So that went on to do my masters, and then currently a doctoral researcher, but I'm just having a little bit time off at the minute because we've got a not so newborn anymore. He's one this month, so that year's flown by. So I'm taking a little bit of time away from the studies at the moment, and I'll be dropping back in a couple of months' time on that. So, but yeah, just I left my job whilst I was studying. I was sort of paying the bills and obviously paying for the studies as well at the time. Left my job and then set up the nutrition company or obviously the elementary stages of the nutrition company back then. That's why we're here today, basically. It's, I've always wanted to set up my own business and help people with the knowledge that I've got and that our team's got and things like that. And just try and get that out to the world and start teaching people about nutrition for life. So we've ended up working with athletes and the general public. That's the bulk of what we do. We worked in primary schools, we worked with parents, we've worked with companies and things, lots and lots of different people over the years. So we've had the pleasure of, delivering that information to, lots of people at different stages.
Amazing. I love the word quantum as well. Where did that come from? Quantum nutrition?
Quantum nutrition. Well, I suppose that there was a couple of business mentors that I used to work with. And initially we wanted to set up a company that had sort of lots of different branches. So it was like quantum wellness, quantum nutrition, quantum this, that and the other, quantum leap, quantum, there's a few other bits and pieces. So my element was obviously quantum nutrition, and the other bits, we didn't pursue it in the end, but obviously quantum nutrition's stayed. So it used to be called SJM Nutritions, and I thought that was a little bit egotistical. It's just my initials. It's not really anything special. And I suppose, there's a scientific element in there as well, and, really taking a look at the absolute minuscule aspects and always taking a step back and look at the broader aspects. It all loosely sort of ties in, so we've kept it as that, really.
I love cool business names. I just love it. As soon as I saw it, I'm like, anything that starts with a Q.
It just sounds intelligent. It sounds like you know what you're talking about, which is obviously important. But I think it's great to see that you're not only on the higher end of nutrition when it comes to the best athletes in the world, essentially, but also you're filtering that advice and tailoring that advice down to, like I said, parents, people who, just are everyday people who need kind of really good, solid advice. And like I said, not just taking recommendations from the mates and hairdressers, because it's amazing how much people value that stuff more than someone like yourself who's a trained nutritionist.
Yeah, and then this is the thing. I had a meeting even last week with a couple of people that we work with, and we basically said it's like a bit of a double-edged sword, because you've got to think like nobody has a chat in the pub or over a coffee or something about architecture or like pediatric surgery or something. It's like that's out of my scope. Like I'm not allowed to get involved with that. So with nutrition, everybody can get involved with it, and everybody can discuss it, and everybody eats, everybody prepares food in some way, and so it's something that's a part of everybody. But the problem is it's a very scientific thing. So you do get people sort of branching over into different areas which maybe they shouldn't, and so it's great that everybody's involved and everybody can discuss it and have a part of that discussion. But it's not so great in other things, where it's just like you need to speak to an expert about that topic. There's, every single week I'm saying, look, that's out of my scope. I couldn't possibly comment on that. We'll pass you on to somebody that knows what they're talking about there. Whereas that might be a genuine discussion in a hairdresser or a pub or something, or whatever,
I always found the issue with that is everyone's got first-hand experience with food. We all consume food, so we've all got this opinion, and it's all biased towards what's worked for us in the past. But the issue I've always found is people don't actually understand why it's worked. They might go on a keto diet, for example, and they think it's worked for one reason, but it's actually for another reason. And the reason it worked for them may not work for someone else. I think we all have this preconception of why it works, and we pass that on. You want to try this, you want to try these raspberry ketones because they did amazing things for me. But a lot of the time it was just maybe your head was in the right place, you really wanted to lose weight. It wasn't that specifically that worked. It was just a desire to lose weight and your head was in a good space. But you're convinced now that it was the raspberry ketones. I'm telling you, those things, the miracle workers.
It's almost like a bit of a placebo. So again, going against the grain here a little bit, but that's sometimes still a good outcome because they're taking this weird and wonderful supplement from the foothills of the Himalayan mountains or something or whatever it is. But then they think, well, if I'm taking this, then I need to stay consistent with the gym. And then because I'm doing that and the gym, I really need to make sure the rest of my nutrition's good. So by the way, I'm not recommending that in any way, but I'm just saying, if there's a net gain there, sometimes it's not the worst thing in the world. But yeah, it'd be much better if people learn about fundamental nutrition principles that are the same for everybody, and then understanding that the vehicle that they choose to tick those boxes, that's the thing that can be different for every person. So somebody might go low carb or low fat or track or portion control or vegan or keto or whatever, but they're just the vehicles that manipulate those nutrition data behind the scenes. So if they understand what needs to happen with those nutrition numbers, they can pick whatever the vehicle they want that works best for them going forward. But then, hopefully that sort of reframes it for people a little bit. You could go low carb. I wouldn't work well with that. I could go low fat. You might not work with that. But the nutrient boxes are being ticked regardless underneath, in principle. So, there's two different trains of thought there.
No, I totally agree. And the placebo thing, it does definitely drive people, but it always stems back to they've not really fully understood why it's worked, and then when they pass on that information, they're not really qualified to say it, even though they think sometimes they are because they've tried it and it's worked, and you can understand why they want to kind of pass on the information, but some of these kind of things can really mess people up as well, as I'm sure you've seen in the past. People have been really kind of severely damaged from a nutritional point of view because of poor information.
Yeah, no question, and we've especially sort of a few years ago. So we work with different companies at the moment, but I used to work one-to-one with a lot of people, and they would work with, let's say, a PT who, I don't know, let's say they won a bodybuilding competition in the 90s or something, and it's like they're the go-to person to get in shape then. But then the problem is that the nutrition advice that they were giving to the client that before they reached me was all about avoid this and do not have that, and if you're having like a donut with your kids at the weekend, whilst feeding the ducks or something, it's like, I can't believe you're not taking this seriously enough. It's nonsense advice. But their interactions with nutrition is problematic now as a direct result of that advice. So we've had that, definitely.
I can definitely see why the bodybuilding world would instill that in people, because you can't blame people. You see bodybuilders, you look at the most shredded people in the world with the most amount of muscle. It's a very difficult thing to achieve. For sure, it's the one thing the body doesn't want to do. It doesn't want to retain muscle while getting very lean. But the way they live and the way they eat just does not transfer very well to everyday people. It's so militant in its approach that it will send most people insane.
Yeah, the other thing is you get, I don't know, millionaire con men. It's not necessarily the best way of doing things. Do you know what I mean? You put it like that, the outcome looks great, but it's the way they've done it is not going to be the best for everybody. So
that's a good analogy.
That's a great analogy, to be fair. Which you mentioned about them, like the foundational behaviours and principles. Do you mind elaborating on that a little bit, so someone's listening who's clueless about nutrition? Like,
yeah, definitely. So if you break it, if we just go really, really simple. So for me, some people know a lot about nutrition to begin with. Some people don't know anything at all, and they've got to sort of learn from scratch, really. So I just keep things unbelievably simple, because the more simple it is, the easier you can get on with things. So if you think about like quantities and the quality of the food, and just thinking about those two separate topics. So the quantity is pretty much nice and easy, but it's in specific reference to the total calorie intakes. And I know some people are a big fan of knowing the numbers. Some people are a little bit like standoff. I don't want to calorie count, and that's fine. But regardless of what you want to do, everybody falls into the category on the planet of your target is to gain weight, maintain your weight, or lose weight. You will fall into one of those three categories. So to a degree, we do need to be at least aware, roughly speaking, of the quantities that you're consuming. Because if you don't want to lose weight and you are losing weight, that's most likely a quantity problem. So there's the quantities, and then there's the quality as well. And again, you could break that down almost indefinitely into selenium intakes and like iodine, and you could really go into. But in simple terms, making sure that we've got plenty of micronutrients going in through fruit and veg, and other areas like nuts and seeds and berries and things like that. So that's one of the key areas, especially for the micronutrients and fibre. And then making sure that we have enough protein, which is a bit of a tricky topic for a lot of people, because they think, if I'm going to have more protein, I'm going to turn into this big bulky bodybuilder or something. It's like, well, it's a little bit like saying I don't really want to drive my car anymore in case I become an F1 driver. It's not. Don't worry. There's a lot more to it than that. So hitting your protein intake is unbelievably important for almost every stage of life, really, especially elderly populations and other demographics too. So protein's key for pretty much everybody, and then hydration as well, making sure that you've got plenty of fluids going in. And then lastly, when it comes to carbs and fats, just making sure that we're not eliminating completely either of those two groups, because there's people that just go, I don't want to eat carbs at all, and that could be out of fear, it could be out of other reasons. We never eliminate a whole food group in its entirety. We don't do that. Carbohydrates are unbelievably important for lots of things, from brain function to recovery, immunity, and lots of other areas. And the same with fat, but for other reasons. So those can, carbs and fats can fluctuate. You can have personal preferences on that, and that's no problem. But these are the key areas, really. Just to make sure that we're focusing on those. And probably, again, it's hard to quantify, but say 80-90% of your nutrition will take care of itself from there if you're ticking those boxes. And then it's the last bit of actually doing it, which is the practical element. It's all right having the knowledge, then you've got to actually go and do it when the kids are drawing on the walls with crayons or something. It's tricky.
For sure. I'm not at that stage yet, my little one. She's not bits of the crayons just yet. I think everything you're saying is just so on point with where me and Brad are as well, with kind of our ethos around nutrition, which is actually really quite rare today, isn't it? We're so set and so in one mindset around what works and what doesn't. And I feel like in today's world, this is why people get confused. It's because people are very on it with one topic. If you're following these people online, you immediately start seeing these things every day, and you get convinced that, Eliabu's right, we should be cutting out all processed food. It's completely bad, and what it's doing to people. And there's a bit of scaremongering almost nowadays. It's very hard to retrain that pattern of thinking once someone's done that for years. And sometimes people do it subconsciously. They might see these things online and not know they're actually making those little choices when they go to the supermarket and taking out little things in the breakfast because someone's told them that it's not right. it can all get into your psyche and actually, again, just damage in the long run.
Yeah, I really do feel sorry for people because it's not always 100% their fault, if you like. It's actually probably rarely their completely their fault. And the reason being is because if I wake up today and say, look, I want to take care of my nutrition, I need to get good quality information and advice from somewhere, and you open Instagram or something, it's like, oh, this guy's got 17.5 million followers. Yeah. He must be the go-to expert. And it's not. It's because he's ripped and shouty, and it's for other marketing reasons that he's so big, or he's a collaborator with Gary Vee or somebody, or like some other person that's exposed his audience and he's got a massive following now. So if it's not those metrics that are of interest to people, then what is? And the unfortunate thing, the boring nutritional scientist that's dedicated 30 years of his life to research with 17 followers on Instagram, he's the guy to follow.
Yes, yeah.
Who's going to do that?
It's clout now, isn't it? The more clout you've got, the more followers you've got, the more engagement you get, the more people think your message is valid, which just unfortunately, as we know, isn't the case.
It's really, really tricky. It really is. So for somebody to have the tools and knowledge to go, okay, I know how to pick the right person to follow, that in itself is a minefield before you even start with your nutrition. So it's tricky.
What can people probably expect if they follow you, Shane? So I imagine from meeting you in the past and knowing what you like, and knowing that you've got 3 kids as well, 3 boys, and you said before we started, me and Ryan are eldest of 3 boys. I regularly have sympathy for my mum and dad in terms of nutritionally and behaviourally. What can people expect if they choose to follow you?
It's a little bit different. I suppose we could probably set up this a little bit better really within the business, but it's a bit of a mixture. It's like a melting pot of different things. So today my content might be about this, just being on the podcast. It might be tomorrow about a company that we might be working with, working in the workplace wellness side of things. But then the next day it could be me at home making pizzas with the kids or something. And then, so there's a little bit of a mix of everything. There's a fine dose of sarcasm in there as well, to be fair. I suppose that's just for me to keep saying,
We all appreciate that, mate, don't we? I've seen a few of your posts and it's well appreciated.
Yeah, we were just having a chat before we came on, weren't we? It was like, there was just one post a few weeks ago about the influencers' recommendations, and again, it's just I don't want to call people out. It's not what I'm here for at all, so I won't be doing that. But it's more to do with the topics that come up, and it's like, don't eat carbs before 7 or something because this stores body fat, and then something else, and then only don't blend up your fruit because this will cause this, that, and the other. And it's like, all I have to do is just take a quick scan for 2 days and there'll probably be 50 different bullet points here that are all genuine nonsense nutrition recommendations. But I've only just had a quick look on Instagram here a few times over a couple of days. So, the amount of stuff that gets thrown out there it's nuts. So we've got a little bit of trying to correct those things. And also, there's data on some of these topics. So, we'll literally say, we think that this recommendation is based in this area, there's some research here on this, so take a look at the research. It actually suggests the complete opposite, and here's why. So there's a bit of that, a bit of, I don't know, me walking the dog or something and putting some nonsense up or something, and a bit of who we want to work with and, what we're doing as a company to help those people. So,
brilliant. I think it's important you put out your information, what your company does, but you also have to be relatable as well. I think as mundane as walking the dog sounds, it lets them into your life. And I'll be honest, when I post my blog, I never get as many likes. The engagement's great, so the odd dog post always goes down well. But I think there's actually now, which is really, really good to see, an opposite movement to that, where you're getting a lot of people debunking these ridiculous and ludicrous ideas, and people are fortunately turning towards science and what actually works and who actually knows what they're talking about. Because people have common sense as well. They see through bullshit. And I think if you're seeing so much nonsense online and then you see a post where someone actually shows some studies, shows the research, puts it in a really nice formatable way for the average person, that's getting a lot of traction now, and that's great to see. And there's certain people in the industry who I'm really kind of gravitating towards because of that. And I think you definitely fall into that category, for sure.
Yeah, I think there's a guy that I follow. I bought his book last month. There's a guy called Doctoral. I don't know if you've heard of him, but if you search for him on Instagram, and he's brilliant, and all the videos are really short and just it'll come out with some outrageous claim. It'll sort of go time for school, and then I'll head into the science of this, that, and this study showed, a meta-analysis of 6,000 people showed this, and this. So when you see headlines like this, completely ignore it. Or sometimes it's confirming, actually, this is really good advice, and it's not always calling people out. Some of the advice is great, so it's that confirming that. There's people like that are doing some, really real good things in the world, and it's good to see he's got a really good following as well. So it's like, can everybody else please just go this way a little bit? We've got science.
I think that is growing slowly but surely. That movement's getting better and better, and the common sense is coming out. But then, I don't like to keep mentioning his name, but people like Eddie is still very, very popular. And I think we've spoken about it many times before, but I do think that there's a really good message behind some of these guys' ethos, but it's the way it's sold and marketed that's a bit of an issue.
Yeah, and I think for me, seeing how Shane is such a big advocate for change, and like you said it earlier, we want nutrition for life.
Yeah.
Like one of the questions that hypothetically I want to propose to you, Shane, is if we click your fingers, you are UK's Minister of Health now.
Okay.
How on earth do you implement all of this? Well, where would you start?
So I put a couple of posts up about this. I've almost asked probably word for word on my profiles, on similar topics. But the problem is it's a really multifaceted thing. And, I've been working in the industry probably just under a decade now. And in year one, I'd have probably said something like, we need to get the kids involved, we need to educate them, and then, get the parents involved. And then it's like, it's so easy. This is so easy. Just start from the kids and then we'll get the next generation. But the problem is, and then, a year later, I was working one-to-one with people, and there was a lady I used to work with that she was on the 35th floor of a block of flats in London, and she hasn't got a car, and she's got 4 kids, and she's a single mum, and I'm there going, you need to go and visit the local health food store, go and get this organic, this, that, and the other. It's like, but that's genuinely not feasible for her, because she's got, it sounds stupid, but she's literally got to get 2 kids in a pram, take the other 2 down, or this lift, and then she's got to walk past 16 takeaways on the high street to get to the food place. And it's like, so you can start thinking it's really, really exceptionally difficult for some people, and some people it's much easier as well, and you can you have the luxury of being able to act on those recommendations without too much friction. But without giving you a big, massive, long and drawn-out answer, you have to get the children involved. You have to do that, because we're focused so much on when people are already overweight or obese or have diabetes or have coronary heart disease or at risk for something. That's when they start getting treated, and there's not really anything being done to stop the whole of the UK from doing this. So in 20 years' time, in 30. So definitely getting the kids involved for sure, and also getting them educated. And I'd really like it to be part of the curriculum, because it's all good and well, learning about other topics, but nutrition happens 3 or 4 times every day for every single person on the planet, and to not have knowledge in that area as you grow up is nuts. So there was a gentleman who's 67 years old, and he had a meeting with him last week, and he just said, Shane, I know a lot about a lot of things, but I have absolutely no idea about nutrition. I'm 67 and I'm ashamed to say I don't know anything about it. Wow. And it's like, how can this be? How can it be? But I'm not saying trigonometry is not important, but it might be for certain things. But surely on an order of priority, your mental health, your nutrition, your fitness, your day-to-day levels of physical activity, everything else is built on top of that. Do you get what I mean? It's like, if those things aren't sorted, it's like, well, there's not going to be any gym if you're ill, and your doctor's visits once, twice a week for the rest of your life. And it's I'm not saying it's that easy to sort out, but there's so many different areas that we need to take a look at. But yeah, getting the kids involved, getting the parents involved, also boosting much more investment in facilities as well for kids in the area. when I was growing up, it'd just be a field and a football. So we've certainly come on a little bit more. There's AstroTurf now and stuff like that, but there's still not enough focus and push on getting kids at a young age involved with sport. And they don't have to be an Olympian. It could just be they love rock climbing or something, and they go sign up to the climbing wall in Sheffield or something, or playing for a local football team, or like whatever it is. But keeping that as an ethos of the UK, if you get me. So it's like it should almost be weird that you're not sporty, whereas now it's like, oh, you're one of them sporty types. I'm not too into nutrition or sport. It's like, but like to me, that's like saying you're not into oxygen or something. It's like, it's quite important, to be fit and healthy and active. And so
you hit the nail on the absolute head there. I think it starts from the bottom. And just reminded me, actually, there was a podcast I listened to recently where there was a food journalist, and he just look at the best countries in the world when it comes to kids and nutrition, who's got sustenance. Japan just kept coming up as this country that's really got it nailed down. And he went over there and he went into schools and he was interviewing parents and kids. And he said, he was looking at the lunchtime meals that these kids were being given and taken to school. And they were all like broccoli and rice and, chicken, which sound very bodybuilderish, but obviously with mixtures of other things in there, rice and the way they do it. And he went around the school and he said, what's your favourite food to all the kids? And one said, like, I love rice.
Yeah.
Like, rice. All right, what's your favourite food? Broccoli. I love broccoli. And the kids all said these very unique but very healthy foods.
Yeah.
And you couldn't believe it. It didn't really. And they were like, do your kids not like healthy food? What they like? And he was like, I daren't say, because they really like Oreos and all these kind of high sugar processed foods. No, let's not mention those.
Anyway,
but they just got it and they understood it, and they didn't really understand why their kids didn't like healthy food. They couldn't suss it out. So there's something that they've really cracked, and I think he put it down to, number one, from an early age, those things are really pushed, and number two, the kids are actually heavily involved in the making of the foods.
Yes.
So they actually get involved in, like, they're shown how to cook and how to prepare foods, and they get the kids involved. The kids aren't wheeling knives around and stuff, but they're having an active role in making sure the food is prepared with the family. And I think that was a really important aspect of understanding nutrition and being instilled from a really early age.
I totally agree, and we've literally done exactly that in a number of primary schools in the area. We've held after-school workshops, and we go in and have a chat with the school, and obviously they really want to help the kids. But the thing is, for me, it's like the kids can't do it if they go home and the parents aren't involved. So I've made a real push to say, get the parents there as well. So I understand people have got work and things, I get that. So just to as much as a feasible extent possible, get the parents involved. And there were certain schools that we had such an uptake, we had to put 2 or 3 sets of the workshops on. And it's like, wow, okay, well, we assumed that these guys didn't want to be involved, weren't available, and it was literally the opposite. So and then you said they weren't wielding knives around, but they were in our workshops. They literally were. So, we'd have like safety knives for some of the younger kids.
Yeah.
And then what we'd do in the first session is just show them, exactly like, safe cutting skills. And then the parents would do it first and they'd go, all right, well, that makes sense. And it's like, they've got it. Yeah. And then the first week or two would be maybe the parents and the child holding the knife, just really gently. It's like slow and steady. Do not rush this. Like, just take your time. And then by the end, they were just chopping their own stuff up. And it was at the beginning, this had never happened. Like, get away from that knife, what's he doing? Yeah. It's like, whereas no, but with it, if they've got to get involved with food preparation, it's more difficult to chop with, a knife and fork knife.
Yeah, of course.
It's difficult, how do you chop up a carrot with that? So we do have to get them involved with those experiences. But then the biggest thing for me was it was quite unique to see how the parents and the kids were interacting in the sessions. So they were sort of bonding as well over something that's so important as nutrition. So this is something that they can take back into their own house. And there's no reason why they can't do that. I'm not saying every night, because look, I'm a nutritionist, I'm not getting the kids involved with cooking every night. It's a nightmare sometimes. But 2 or 3 times a week, maybe once, twice even, like, it could be Fridays, just getting the pizzas out, getting them to chop the ingredients up and make we did this in one of the sessions, and they made rockets, and using the ingredients, the peppers and stuff, and putting them on there, and it's like draw mummy or daddy's face using the ingredients and be like a big horrible monster or something. It's like, just getting them involved, and then they're more likely to start trying new things and new ingredients, new recipes. Their parents are more well versed with nutrition now, and they can take that home. And then we were getting feedback where, some of the parents are taking their kids to like a caravan holiday, and it was the kid who or the child, one of the children that we worked with, took it upon themselves to say, right, I'm going to make these. They were like rolled out like puff pastry, like pesto bake things. But it sounds complex, but it's not. Just roll it out, spread the pesto on, chop the ingredients, a little bit of cheese, happy day, and put it in the oven. And they cut it up, and they were just like over the moon that they'd cooked for like 8 or 9 of their relatives and stuff. So this has come from 5 or 6 different sessions that we've done with them. And that's the impact. Like, imagine if we did that across the UK. It would just be the beginning of changing things with that next generation coming through, I think.
What an amazing initiative that is. I can't rate that enough, and I think you're right, not enough schools and people are pushing this. Is it something that you want to roll out on a bigger scale? Is it something that you can grow?
And this is one of the problems, because we do want to do that, but let's say after the UK hosted the Olympics, there was a lot of funding invested into schools and into getting kids to participate in sport, and there was some of that funding that we could access because there's a lot there, and lots of schools jumped in with it. Whereas it could be a new government comes into play and the funding gets shifted somewhere else, and then a different government comes in. So it's again, it shouldn't be about this, but for business purposes, it's actually quite difficult to get lots of schools to jump on board with the same initiative, because there's so many other variables at play in the background.
I'd be quite surprised if parents, if schools said to parents, look, we're putting on this workshop, it's about nutrition, it's about healthy eating, it's about how to inspire your kids to get into food and make the right choices. I think you'd be surprised how many parents will pay just £10 for a session, and you get 10, 15, 20 parents in there. How much that would be a driver. I mean, honestly, if our nursery that Harlow went to did that, I'd be first in line, 100%.
Absolutely. And again, that's don't get me wrong, I'm not saying we're not doing it, but it's these are the types of conversations that we've had with different schools and head teachers, and but we will definitely be rolling it out to as many schools as we can.
Brilliant.
Definitely.
Brilliant.
Love that. And you mentioned it briefly already, more like generational nutrition.
Yeah.
So that one question, I probably wanted to go down that route, particularly when, you send your kids to the grandparents and they just get spoiled rotten and they get all sorts of stuff. In terms of getting other family members to buy into it, have you got any advice about maybe how parents can talk to maybe their other family members and say, this is really important to me? To actually instill this relationship. I don't know if you've dealt with many people who've done that before.
Yeah, so we have had discussions around that, and it's sometimes it's just there's no other way around it other than it just being really difficult, because grandparents sort of show their love to their grandkids through making them happy, and what makes a kid happier than getting a Mars ice cream out of the freezer, or come on, let's go to the shop, we'll get you some sweets in. And by the way, there's nothing wrong with that, unless there's a clinical reason. Like, on the grand scheme of things, it's not that big a deal. But when you zoom out and take a look at the bigger picture here, and let's say over a month or 6 months maybe, there might be 20 of the kids' birthdays and somebody brings a bag of sweets into school, and they might, it could be that, it could be the birthday parties at the weekend for each one of those, and it's pizza and chips and chicken nuggets and party food with cake in there as well. And then every weekend, or maybe 2 or 3 times a week, they'll see the grandparents, and there's a donut bought for them there. And then, by the way, I'm their parent, I've not given them anything yet. So what happens if I want to go to Costa and go, look, I'm just going to get you a baby tuna with a little millionaire shortbread and we'll half that. Happy days, that's my treat there. So it's not the one thing that's the problem. It's the problem is there's 5 or 6 people doing the same thing, and that now their nutrition becomes 40% sweets and chocolate, sugar, processed stuff, takeaways, whatever it might be. and instead of 5 or 10%, there's nothing wrong with the odd treat, nothing. And God almighty, like if you're a kid growing up, of course you want, you know, a bag of Skittles or something every now and again. Like, seriously, who cares? As long as it's a small proportion of their intakes and they're healthy and active and doing other things, like happy days. But it's really difficult. So for me, it's more just like setting ground rules and just saying, look, you can, but this is when you can. And then it's like, fill your boots, go and do it then, that's fine. That's your ownership of doing that with the kids, fantastic. But the rest of the time, it's a no, because I'm taking them out this weekend and we will have ice cream whilst we're at the park or something, because it's going to be a nice day. But you can't have ice cream with me and then I drop them off with you, and then they have ice cream there, and then they have, can I have the little dessert after tea tonight? So that's 3 things in one day. It's a big old chunk of their daily nutrition now from less nutrient-dense sources.
And you know the kids will play on that as well. Yeah. They understand exactly what's going on. They know when the parents have been talking to the grandparents. But yeah, I think you just don't treat kids any differently to how you would treat adults. There's nothing that's offline. You don't want to you don't want to instill some kind of weird complex on the kids. You want to make sure that they understand what's good and what's bad and why it's good and why this stuff has to be limited. And I think with things like WhatsApp groups and all that communication nowadays that we have, it's really important, like I said, that everyone's on board, everyone understands kind of almost like the nutrition rota for the kid. I
think one thing as well, it might be a little bit like out of the blue here, but I think it's really, really important to say no.
Yeah.
You know, this thing of like, oh no, you don't upset them. If they want it, it's like you feel bad because they feel bad, and it's like, but you're their parent. You're not their friend in the playground sharing sweets with them. You're their parent. So I'm not saying don't give them treats and sweets at all. I'm not saying that either. But there has to be a point in time where you say, no, you've already had this yesterday or this week or whatever it might be. So we can definitely do it, but it'll be next week now or in a few days or whatever the example is. And there's nothing wrong with saying no, because the kids will grow up learning that these bits have to be in moderation now, and the answer is no today. There's nothing wrong with that. This, like I say, it's like a taboo thing of don't upset them, they'll probably get upset about it. It's like, good, they should get upset about it, because they're a 5-year-old or a 4-year-old. That's of course not getting what they want is something that's going to upset them. It doesn't mean that you're going to do it, So
I couldn't agree more with that. We'll absolutely nail on the head. And I think parents, number one, it's hard to say no to your child. No one wants to see the kid upset. Your kid crying is the worst thing in the world, isn't it? And when you just want to, sometimes even just shut them up as well. Like make your life a little bit easier. It's so hard to go, you know what? There's a chocolate bar. Go and do what you want. And the kid then just starts to understand. I mean, these are very intelligent, human beings, even though they're so small, they understand social situations and the way we're acting, picking things up, and they know that when they overreact with things, when they cry, I get my own way there, I get what I want, and they'll pick up on that. So absolutely spot on, mate.
Hopefully.
in
in practice it's different. It is really tricky.
Sure.
In terms of any questions we got from, because we did open this up to Instagram, and sort of ask the nation. Is there any questions that you have for Shane?
Yeah, we've got a few. I've kind of just picked out best couple, really. So the first one actually was from my missus. I mentioned this before we came on, and it's a really poignant topic about what we just discussed. And so her mum essentially was very into eat numbers and sugars, and it was a time in the 90s, obviously, when all these things were coming into the mainstream news, and there was a little bit of scaremongering going on, and people were becoming a bit more savvy what they should and shouldn't give the kids. And there was this issue where Amy would have to go down the sweet aisle, and her mum would make her look at every single packet and pick out any sweets that didn't have E numbers in. And when they got those sweets, it was then, right, here's 5 sweets in my hand, you can have those, and that's it for the week, basically. And there was a real hard restriction on sweets. Now, I totally get the sentiment. I think the parent was really looking out for the child there, no doubt about it. They wanted their child to grow up fit, healthy, happy. But the issue was later in life, now Amy to this very, very odd complex with sweets where when she's stressed and she's overwhelmed, she'll binge on sweets like this. And my missus is like a rake, she's thick thin, so it doesn't really affect her too much. But she knows it's an issue. I'll get in her car sometimes and I go to the shop and there's wrappers everywhere. A couple of those outside. How are these sweets that you like? And it's unbelievable. I can't. It's off the scale some weeks, but again, when she's stressed.
Same as my car.
But yeah, it was just. I know it was all from those times as just a kid. There was an ultra level of restriction. So Amy's question basically was, how do you instill a positive relationship with food in children from an early age without it being too overwhelming?
It comes down to the habits of the whole family, I think, and how the kids are involved. So, when I was growing up, there was all of these themes, and again, I don't want to say anything negative about my parents. By the way, they weren't nutritionists, but they were informed by their generation as well, which are probably wartime habits and things like that. And make sure you finish your plate. You don't know how fortunate you are to have this food here, and so the sentiment's really good there. But then in a world where, if you compare the access to food they had then to what we have now, we're playing on different playing fields now. I could open an app now and get 75 takeaways to deliver here and not even move within the next half an hour, 1 hour maybe.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, that you've got to play with those new tools now. So I think really getting the kids involved with nutrition at a nice early young age, and thinking that the tricky bit is to think differently, especially when they're very young. So we've got a 1-year-old at the moment, just turning 1 this month, and for breakfast he might have a little bit of porridge maybe or something like that, but he won't just have that. He'll have loads of fruit that maybe I don't like. So it's about going out into the shop and going, I can't stand this fruit or whatever, but I will eat it. So and you chop it up into little pieces, and then you start thinking, well, how can we make it as appealing as possible for a 1-year-old? And they're a visual age, so it's like if there's like a rainbow basically on their plate, they're like, oh cool, what's this? Whereas if it's like really beige foods and things like that, they might in inverted commas taste better maybe, but at that age you've got to play with what they respond best to, and then they get a little bit older. We've got a 6-year-old and a 4-year-old, and I'll be completely honest, we're having a nightmare with getting them involved with lots of different foods. One's a little bit worse than the other, but don't think that I'm not going through the exact same thing. But they were brought up on lots and lots of different veg and like chunks of broccoli and boiled carrots on the plate and peas, sweet corn. They can see all the different nutrients there, but even then they get to 3 and 4 and they go, I don't want this anymore, I'm not bothered. And it's like, why? You've had this your whole life, like why would you not want this? And there's only a certain amount you can do about that. So for me, it's about trying to get the kids involved as much as possible with nutrition. But then also, if it's really bad, as in they just won't eat any veg or fruit or anything, there's covert ways that you can sort of shoehorn nutrition in there. So we did a bit of this actually yesterday. Actually, I'm not taking credit, it was my wife that did it. So she cooked last night, but she did like a big whole tray full of different roasted veg. And again, chop it up, put it in the oven, a little bit of olive oil or something, and that's it. There's not really anything else to do. You take it out, put it into a blender, and it goes into a sauce now. And then you put a little tin of, tin tomatoes in there or passata. And now you've got like a really nice pasta sauce that's absolutely rammed full of micronutrients. If we'd have put like, roasted carrots and onions and aubergines and whatever in front of the kids, they'd have gone, no, I'm not having that. But because we said it was tomato sausage pasta, and they're like, oh yeah, nice one, we'll fin it now. So I'm not saying, at some point they do have to get to the point where they're like, no, I'm happy with veg on my plate. But if they're going through a challenging period, just think about ways you can shoehorn it into those curries and sauces and things like that. And the macronutrients are still going in, if you get me. And that's the important thing.
You're not highlighting like the aubergine, you're just saying the things that they're like sausages. You've got sausages here and there's going to be some aubergine. Just basically disguising and hiding foods within certain meals.
Yeah. It's like, do you like pizza? I love pizza. Let's make pizza at the weekend. But the toppings on there. They don't mind sweet corn, so we'll sprinkle that on there. And then we might blend up some red peppers as part of the sauce to put on there. And then they don't know that there's really finely chopped garlic, so there's a couple of garlic cloves in there as well. They don't realise there's a little bit of olive oil in there as well, so there's some healthy fats going in there. They don't realise that there's mixed herbs in that sauce as well. So again, there's loads of these little sprinklings of contributions, and in their head they're just having pizza. And then if you can, you're like, okay, let's pick a new ingredient to put on the pizza. We'll chop it up together. What would you like? There's an orange pepper there, green one, red one. There's an onion here. There's some mushrooms. There's what would you like? And then it's over to them now, and they've got to try and get involved with it now. Don't get me wrong. More often than not, they go, I don't like any of these. It's like, well, I'll tell you what. We'll put it on half of it, and then see how you get on. And you can have one bite, and if you love it, great. If you don't, you don't. But you do that 20 times with 20 different meals, there will be veg that they're like, I really like this actually. And then you do it again in a couple of months' time, there's 4 or 5 different new veg coming now, and it's just an uphill battle.
And the goalposts always move with kids. Like the amount of times with my little one, like she got into we need some pears one day, and I was like, right, so buy loads of pears. I stopped out all these bags of pears, and then she turns around one day, I wanted pears, and I don't like pears. Like great. So you just got to just be very on your feet, keep trying different things, see what they like and don't like, but never give up on it. I think that's one of the main messages.
Yeah, and I think as well, you've got to think kids want, when they want sweet stuff, it's something that's sweet that they're after. So if they put it in their mouth and it's sweet, then it doesn't necessarily have to be E-number loaded sweets or chocolate. It doesn't necessarily. So it could be, for example, some Greek yogurt with a bit of honey in there. That's sweet. So they get used to that. We've done things like, especially when it's nice weather like this, it's a bit too hot. We'll put some like frozen grapes, freeze like a bunch of grapes, put those in their freezer, and we'll take those out. You can get like candy floss flavoured grapes and different varieties of grapes and stuff. Yeah, I don't know if this was a while ago.
Well, maybe candy floss flavoured grapes.
Yeah. Well, it's this a genuinely natural variety, but it's like they're just super sweet grapes. So I think it's a marketing thing, but it's like candy floss.
I Google this.
So then if they're a bit smaller, you chop those into quarters, and it's like it's almost like a little broken up, ice lolly or something for them. It's like happy days. So I just wanted something sweet.
Yeah.
So bit of that as well, maybe.
One of the questions we had was around a topic we discussed before, around trying to get everyone on board. Basically it said, how do I go to a kid's party and have my kid not eat everything that everyone else is eating, because I want them to eat a little bit healthy without seeming like, number one, the parent who's being a little bit obnoxious and not having my kid eat what everyone else wants, and also making my kid feel like they're not being left out. How would you navigate that?
Again, it's I just feel sorry for people that are in those situations, because we have it. We have kids' birthday parties probably every other weekend, and it is all chips and pizza and things like that, and ice cream. Now some of them are actually sort of, I would say half and half, let's say, and there is like carrot sticks and cucumber sticks and a bit of hummus maybe or something like that, and they've got grapes as well as the ice cream. And so again, just trying to like get to the point where if the kid picks what goes on the plate, then guess what's going to go on there. So trying to just be involved with that bit, so that it's not as though they're not having pizza. That looks strange, I suppose, in front of all. They would feel a bit left out if there's nothing on there. And by the way, there's nothing wrong with a bit of pizza, so let them have what they want. But even on that plate, just try and get a few other bits and pieces, even if they just have a little bit of a nibble. Well, they might get used to doing this, going forward. And then secondly, if we just take a step back and look at the whole week and the whole month, is there another area of nutrition where we can go, well, they've had a bit of a nuts period there with poor nutrition there for a day or two at the weekend. Is there anything we can do the rest of the week that can sort of manipulate that a little bit? And maybe there's less ice cream at home because they have that at the weekend. And it's balancing the week, not just that one meal or just that one ingredient, or it's what's happening on the average over the course of the days and the weeks. So a couple of different areas there, really.
I think that was exactly my thought when I saw that question come through. It was, you program it the same way. If a client came to me and said, look, I've got a night out the weekend, it's going to be loads of calories, there's a way we try and approach that and say, right, can we limit what you have? Can we have a smaller breakfast, smaller lunch, say that most of the calories of the evening meal? We'll consider the fact that there's going to be poorer quality food in that evening meal. For the rest of the week, we make sure that everything's hit. Do we change things in the week, whether it is dropping calories down, whether it's improving nutrition? So yeah, that was exactly my thoughts, just making sure that it's kind of programmed into the week essentially. The kids' parties, they're coming up, they're there. And but yeah, I can see why for a lot of parents who are really big on most of the nutrition they eat should be really healthy, why kids' parties are quite difficult to navigate.
Yeah.
I love that as well, because there's a phrase that I try and use with clients a lot, which is when you can't win the day, win the week.
Yeah.
And almost look at that, or really think about, like you said, just damage limitation sometimes.
Yeah.
Accepting the fact that you're not going to win every day.
No.
More often than not, maybe for some people.
Nor do you have to.
Exactly.
It's not essential. It really isn't. So
I think you've answered one of my questions, Shane, which is all about like overcoming that beige stage, which I think was a common question that I got, which is, listen, I've got a kid who's not eating any form of nutritious food right now. It's pasta, it's whatever, which I always wanted to give something for the parents now as well, which is how they can be proactive. You seem like quite a proactive guy who wants to say, listen, it's like the buck starts with you. What could, I suppose, a case study really, Shane, someone who is maybe, both parents work, pick your kids up from nursery or school, they go home, they're absolutely shattered.
Yeah.
What advice can you give to that person to just, make a start, make some informed choices?
Yeah, I think you've got to think of like the family nutrition as a whole as well, because it's it's all good and well focusing just on the kids, but sometimes the parents get to the point that they focus on the kids that much that they're almost sacrificing themselves, and then it's like, would you want your kids to grow up and do the same thing then, and they're going to be sacrificed for their kids? It's like, well, of course not. So you have to learn to be a priority too. So I think, especially at the weekends, if we've got a bit of time spare, we think about nutrition, again, not all the time, we could even be better, but is there something that we can make that's going to be batch cooked and the freezer's just full of amazing foods? So if we do have like a really crappy week, or I'm stressed, or I'm tired, angry, upset, overworked, whatever it might be, that there's just something to pull out and just put in the pan and let it defrost, and maybe some pasta with it, and the meal's done. And you can get back to playing with the kids or sorting out bath time or whatever's happening. So just little things like that to tick the nutrient boxes, but also make your life easier when you do have the time, because that hour or hour and a half spent on a Saturday when you might just be waiting for the baby to wake up or something, or you're not doing anything in that hour anyway. Maybe we can just be frying something off, or put, like I said earlier, some chopped up veg in the oven and getting that roasted off ready to blend up into a sauce. It could just be that, and that sorts you out for multiple meals over multiple weeks. And then again, I keep going back to it, but getting the kids involved is important. They've got to be like touching the fruit and the veg and chopping it up, and lo and behold, when you don't look at them for a split second and they're trying something and you think, well, I didn't really tell them to do that, and then go, God, what's that? I'm not happy with that. It's like, yeah, but when it's roasted, it tastes incredible. So let's get it in the oven, see what that tastes like, and then a raw onion becomes this beautiful little thing on top of the pizza or something. But then they learn, and then they're chopping and they're seeing things, and it's a really sensory thing for kids in nutrition on the learning side of things. We're all very information based, and like, is this got a lot of vitamin C in it? It's like a 6-year-old couldn't give it about how much vitamin C is in there. It's just like, how can we make this taste nice and get the kids involved? So it's difficult because you can't just do it once. It's not really going to do anything. It's like riding a bike. You have a go and it's like you just fall off. And then you do it 10 times. You go, we had a little bit of the light at the end of the tunnel there. And then if it becomes a habit for your family, 2 or 3 times a week maybe, even if it's just chopping something up really quickly at breakfast time, they're involved with nutrition. At the weekend, sitting down saying to your 6-year-old, what would you like to eat this week? They're involved with the meal planning now. And then, do you get what I mean? So it's like getting them involved as much as possible. And again, I'm not saying we're perfect. we're busy too, but I think that's helped us definitely in from the meal planning and the batch cooking side of things to the kids. Actually, we've bought little safety knives and they can chop away until their heart's content and things.
It's a great idea. That's probably one thing I'd take away from this, and get some safety nets for at home and actually get Harlow, cutting some of them foods up herself. And again, even if it's my hand on hers and she's understanding how to do it, I think that's such a great idea. Didn't even think of it.
That's one of the best things we bought for Ted. Like, he loves it.
Really?
He absolutely loves the little potato peeler. But he's got some little safety gloves that he puts on for now, so he's got some wrestling gloves. He puts them on, and it's just what he's training my
I'm just making the same gloves and an apron, like, I'm ready to go.
Oh, I loves it.
Sharpening his knives.
Even that, like, even like a little personalisation fun, so they're getting into this routine of like, this is what we do when we cook, and there's a habit and a ritual.
That's a good idea. This is yours. This is nobody else's. This is yours.
And when we're going to go cook some food and making it gamified, making it fun. But coming back to what you mentioned about the meal prep as well, I think we associate that with like dieting and adults, but doing it in the family unit, I think is fantastic, because it's still healthy, nutritious food that you've made. It's still, and obviously it's not going to be as fresh as if you cooked it there and then, but it's still going to be as good in terms of its quality when you defrost it. And again, making your life easier. I think as a parent, batch cooking 2, 3, 4 portions, whack them in the fridge or freezer, should I say, that's vital, making everyone's lives easier.
I've got presentations this evening at 8 p.m. and we've got the kids to bath and read to and put to bed and all that stuff as well going on. So on an evening like tonight, we might just reach into the fridge for leftovers from last night's fajitas or sausage casserole or whatever it is, or it might be looking into the freezer and taking out some curry and defrosting it and putting that in the pan, and you have to work with what you've got. It doesn't have to be perfect and hand-picked from your home allotment and straight to the pan like within 4 seconds. And there's nothing wrong with using these little tips and strategies to nestle in and around everything that you've got going off.
I think a lot of parents will pressure themselves to have it as optimally nutrient dense as possible, where they can froze and just eliminates all that. But being a parent and cracking the nutrition of your kids is all about that fine balance between having it exactly what the kid needs, having them like it, and also being super convenient. That convenience element can't be undervalued for sure.
I think I wanted to riff off something you mentioned there about like the bike analogy. So quite fitting for us right now. Ted's riding his bike, no stabilizers. Really proud of him. But he can't really start at the moment. Like, I have to like get him started, and then he goes and he says, "I can't start." And I'm like, the momentum's when you get momentum, it's easy. And it really thought, I really want to try and mention that today, because for parents who maybe listen to what you've said, it's going to sound a bit overwhelming when you get some momentum. Hopefully.
Yeah. But honestly, just take it back to the simplest possible thing. If I, again, it sounds really almost cringy and cliche, but if you want to climb Everest, the thought of climbing Everest is so staggeringly overwhelming. But if I said to you, could you take 10 steps today? And you go, yeah, that's easy. But that's progress. And in theory, if you do that over a long enough period, you will climb it. Again, maybe a few other skills and stuff. But it's not the best analogy, but you get where I'm going with it. So, if you're busy and stressed and overwhelmed and you've got other things going off at work and traveling a lot, and for me to go, right, okay, let's go in, we'll completely overhaul your fridge and your freezer, throw everything out, start from scratch, and you've got a meal plan, you've got to hit this target, that, and it's like, honestly, I'm not going to do this. So that's fine. So what's the one thing we can do this week for you to focus on that isn't going to compete with everything you've got going on? So if people might think, well, what meals do I need, and this, that. It's like, no, go really simple. Do you stay hydrated every day of the week? Yes or no? And almost across the board, I don't really know, or no. So great. So I want you to focus on staying hydrated for 7 days. And they're like, seriously, is that all we're doing? It's like, but seriously, yes, because it might not make sense this week, but if we do that for 20 weeks, there'll be 20 areas of your nutrition that you've easily sprinkled in, just in and around everything else. So the week after might be, just make sure that you're having at least 5 portions of fruit and veg every day. You think, well, that's not that difficult. If I'll probably have a banana with my porridge then, there's one. Could be a glass of juice. I've already got 2 for breakfast now, and then I've got some fajitas for lunch, and then I've got, sausage casserole or something, full of beans and garlic, herbs, or blah, blah, blah. And it's like, well, there's probably 6 portions there. Happy days. It's like, day 1's done. Happy days. Just do the same again tomorrow. Keep hydrated. Make sure you've got the fruit and veg going in. That's it. And then 3 might be portion control or total amounts, hitting your quantities targets. week 5 might be something else like protein weeks. So really the smallest incremental wins, and the thing is obviously focusing on consistency rather than perfection on day 1. It doesn't exist. You're trying to, like, I don't know, rebuild a cathedral here or something. It's taken 20 years to get to where you are today. You've got to unravel all those habits and tricky areas of your nutrition, and you think that's going to happen in a fortnight. It's not.
I'm really happy you mentioned that word consistency. I think that's where maybe a lot of parents drop the ball a little bit, because they'll try things for a few weeks or a month, and then old habits will start to come back in. And I think if you spread those habits out over longer periods of time, they're much more likely to stick. So, like having almost like a rota pinned to the fridge. Like, pick one day in the week where as a family, it's low stress. There's a lot of time where we can sit down and have those things, and that's a good starting point for people, where you say, right, Friday night, as you mentioned, it's pizza night. We make the pizzas, we disguise the food in there, and have them as a staple every week. That's just the one thing that you do. If the rest of the week goes tits up, so be it, but that's our staple for this week.
Yeah.
And then you just build on that. I think, phenomenal advice there for sure.
Even for like pizza night or something, you've got like just roll puff pastry, and then you can make your own, and then also you've got tortilla wraps and things like that. So there's 25 super quick and easy, or a bit more complex. You've got time at the weekend. There's so many different ways of manipulating the nutrition for the same meal. The kids just think it's just pizza, but it's like, no, but we've done it differently this way, so they're getting different micronutrients in, or a bit more protein, or whatever it is.
I think you'd be surprised by your kids sometimes when you just make those little changes. You think they would like the kind of big dirty pizza from Domino's. Yeah. Actually, when you make these little kind of unique pizzas that they've made, they actually prefer those.
It's so much more fun.
Yeah, exactly. And
so much
fun. They're engaged. They've made it, and they'd surprise you in terms of how much they would prefer that rather than the Domino's stuff.
Yeah,
definitely. I'd love to ask probably a bit of a selfish question, really, Shane, which is, for me and Ryan, what advice could you give to us and maybe other coaches watching and listening? What message can you give us? What do we should do more of, if that makes sense? So from a nutritional perspective with our clients, what do you want to see more of from coaches and trainers?
I think the number one thing is prioritise it, because we've had discussions with coaches in the past where we've had a chat with them. They've maybe investigated our services and how we can sort of help them with that. And they've said, you know what, a lot of my clients just don't really focus on the nutrition element, so I think it'd be a little bit wasted. And it's like, I see that as being like a financial advisor, and then somebody going, well, I just want to focus on the sales. I'm uncomfortable thinking about the bills and the overheads. And it's like, it doesn't matter whether you're uncomfortable or not about it. It happens whether you focus on it or not. It's still happening. So it's the same with the nutrition. It's like they might go to the gym 3 or 4 times a week, but nutrition happens 3 or 4 times every day of the week. So that's going to be a huge contributing factor to their results, and not just results, energy levels day to day, disease risk, and many, many other areas. So firstly is prioritise it. And when you have a client that says, I'm just not fussed about nutrition, it's our job to challenge the client, not just to appease them. Your role as a coach is to say, look, you're doing amazing. This 80% of areas, really happy. 20% over here, what's happening here? It's like, I just don't find it interesting. It's like, that's good, but we're still going to work on it, because this is where the results are. That's on the other side of that little door that you've not quite opened yet. So prioritise it, definitely. And then secondly, we really shouldn't be getting all clients to do one thing. That, this is what makes nutrition a bit more complex, just a bit of a headache for fitness business owners in general, because it'd be amazing if I could just go and work with 100 clients. I go, right, I'll do a low carb diet, a plan here with maybe 20 other low carb things that they can switch out, and go, there you go, I'll give that to all 100 clients. It doesn't work like that. And you get more extreme cases where it's like the Tupperware thing, and chicken, broccoli and rice, and like salt's naughty, and you're not allowed sriracha sauce, that's processed. And it's like, this is crazy. I know this is what you did in, for that bodybuilding competition, but that's great, it works for you. It doesn't work for your 40-year-old client with 3 kids, at home, at school and things, and lots of traveling to do, and work stresses and relationship challenges. Maybe there's other things going on. For like, and you're asking them to create all these Tupperware things. It's not, you've got to try and meet the client wherever they need to be met, and take into consideration their preferences and their individual needs, and work with that. Not try and copy and paste what your regime is. We need to listen to what regime works best for them and reverse engineer that. So a couple of areas, definitely prioritising it, and also just avoiding that easy, quick fix mentality of the clients ask for a meal plan. It's like, meal plan's not going to set them up for the next 3 decades. That's what we need to be focused on. So don't be giving them a low plan 7-day piece of paper. Educate them about nutrition, get them informed, and then they've got their own weapons and tools now to go out into the world and make their own decisions. And by the way, that's 20 times more value you've given them now, which, by the way, might actually help the business, So, there's lots of boxes ticked there if you sort of do it that way, really.
If there was coaches or parents that wanted to take it a step further and expand the knowledge and go and either research or maybe even do a course, is there anything you would recommend they head to?
See, that's a tricky one, because again, it goes back to that thing that we were talking about earlier on. Certain people that have massive followings, some of them are brilliant. So I would say,
maybe not specific to like a one person online, but like a course they could take, or any guys in the industry who have courses or are good voices potentially.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, we do that. So when we work with PTs and fitness business owners, and whether they're online, offline, or whatever, we have to have like a course for them to go through. So we're actually just this month recreating one that we created a couple of years ago, and it's helped hundreds of different businesses. And it's like a step-by-step course so that they learn about how to personalise their own nutrition. But it goes into other topics that are really important, not just nutrition-wise, like psychology of behaviour change and things like that, and right down to things like how to work out your protein intakes and meal planning and things like that as well. So it's a step-by-step course that they go through, and that's, I suppose, like if you go to university, you've got the textbook, and then you've got the teacher for the interaction and accountability bit and setting you the deadlines and things.
Right.
So the textbook for us is like our video modules that are courses that we create, and then we have them all fully branded for each individual company. And then also we have like monthly subscriptions as well, where we can literally designate a nutrition expert to their company, so that they don't have to worry about that. All the workshops are being delivered for them, and all the questions being answered for them, and all of that's sort of done and dusted. So they've got the course, and then they've got their hand holding step by step of every step of the way.
Brilliant. I think you've known to direct anywhere then, because you guys have completely got it all sorted. Amazing. And where can people find that? Is there a website you can direct them to?
Yeah, so there's I'm on Facebook, so it's Shane J Nugent, and then there's also the Quantum Nutrition Facebook page. It's like a black and silver logo, and then we're also on Instagram as well. I should know what the tagline is. I really should.
Sorry, I don't want to misquote it.
_nutrition_wellness. I think that's it. Okay. But it's quantum.
Well, I searched quantum nutrition and it came up.
Oh, right, okay, fair enough.
It was on the
maybe do that. Ignore me.
Brilliant, awesome. I think the fact that you're so proactive in not only providing that to parents, but actually getting out there as well and speaking to schools, and you're coming from such a top tier level of nutrition that it's nice that someone's filtering this information down and making it so easily accessible, because I think it's the one thing that's missing. And honestly, I think people are going to get so much from this. I think everybody's really going to get a lot of insights and ideas as to how to crack this. But like you said, it's consistency, it's sticking with it, and it's planning out in your week, for sure.
100%.
Yeah, definitely. And hopefully we're sort of pushing the message that you don't have to be perfect. It can be simple. It can be challenging at times, but it's about taking that head on, especially with your kids, or if you've got a busy work life and things.
Yeah.
It's so easy to let nutrition fall by the wayside, and your training and lots of other important areas too. But what's the minimum thing you can do that week so that it's a 5 out of 10 instead of a 1 out of 10? You don't need 10 out of 10 weeks week in, week out. That's not what we're doing here.
Yeah.
We're factoring life in and going, can we get it from a 2 to a 5 this week? And if that's the maximum we can achieve, let's do that this week. Next week, there might be a bit of a a trough in workloads and you go, happy days, we can try and get an 8 or a 9 that week, and the average over the next 10 weeks might be 7 or 8 happy days, but don't worry about that 1 week where it was really tricky. It doesn't have to be perfect week in, week out.
Awesome. There's actually one more question I want to ask, and if I don't ask it, another person will tell me after, because they asked that specifically. So I've got a client who's a parent, and their kid is phenomenally fussy. Like, probably eats 4 or 5 foods in a week. It really struggles to get them eating more diverse foods. How would you approach that in terms? And I know the quality of those foods isn't great either. If you've got the fussiest kid, you can imagine what the first steps you would take to getting them eating more diverse foods.
See, do you know, I really, really wish I could give like a robust answer on this one. I really do.
Okay.
Number one, we would have to know a little bit more about the child themselves and also the parent and their environment. There may be reasons, for example, as to why they eat that way.
Yeah.
It might be something completely different, like stress or anxiety for the child or something. And the thought of venturing out into new areas of nutrition is just like, no, I've got control over this. So it could be that. It could be a myriad of other things. And I think in a case like that, we would definitely have to refer them on to somebody that really works in like paediatric nutrition or something like that. That's the advice that I would give there. What we do is like increasing awareness of nutrition and education and getting the kids involved. Whereas when there's like real like specific nitty-gritty, that could be a big challenge to overcome. It might need potentially a plan of action created by a proper pediatric specialists in that area. I'm so sorry, I would absolutely love to give more advice.
We had a conversation before this podcast, and she kind of hinted that might be the case, and she's definitely looking into those avenues for sure. But some kids, I think, just are fussy by nature, and it's hard to break out that cycle. But I think it is really important they go and seek that help, because you don't want this to be a lifelong thing where they are just pinned with these very small amounts of food they like. That might branch out to other things, but she is concerned for sure. So
what age is the child, by the way?
I think they're 5 now. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So that it's a good age for them to be getting used to new things as well.
Okay.
When you change things up, they might throw a bit of a tantrum that day or something, but when you get into new habits, kids are really receptive to changes in things like that. So it could literally be a case of getting a new portion of fruit or veg onto that plate, just one each day, and a chopped up strawberry. It's like, can you have a tiny little minuscule bite of that? And if you love it, great. It could be that, but again, I don't want to make that as a concrete recommendation, because it could actually be that something.
I think some of the things you mentioned about disguised food as well. She tried a lot of that, so I'm going to relay that to her for sure.
Yeah. Okay, fit.
So before we break off, let's get some lovely food from the amazing.
Looking forward to that. It's been rumbling for about 20 minutes now.
I've picked up my stomach. I've been concerned the whole way through.
I didn't hear it, mate, so you're all right.
I'm pretty sure it'll be worth it, because genuinely, if anyone's in this area,
obviously people straight away will know it's the backdrop. This is a fantastic area in Barlow, and the peacock down here is awesome. As I was walking through the restaurant before to find you guys, I could just smell which is overwhelming.
It's unbelievable up here, it really is. I've been coming here for years and years. I was just saying as well, I used to work here about 15, 16 years ago, as well, peeling spuds and chopping onions and stuff. You cycle.
And now you're still working here with your laptop and you've got this business, so awesome. Yeah, really cool.
Amazing. I suppose my very, very last question for you, Shane, is, again, one sentence would be amazing. Is there a question that you wish people would ask you more?
Question that they'd ask me.
Again, you don't have to go into details about the answer. I'm pretty sure if people want to know it.
I do actually. So I would love it if people would stop asking as many short-term questions. Sorry, that sounds really hard. Stop doing this, but you're more than welcome to ask any questions. But the thing is that anything that's going to help you for the next week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, we can help with that, but I'm much more concerned about you being set up for 2-3 decades to come. Unless we have that, we're not going to have any change in nutrition. So instead of asking can you get me a 6-pack in 6 weeks, I would much prefer the question, how can you set me up for life with nutrition? as soon as we start off with that as the goal, then we can really do amazing things, definitely.
Well said. Shane, really grateful for your time. You've given up a good bit of time, you've given up your knowledge, and yeah, we're really grateful.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you for coming.
Very, very well.
Thank you, mate.
Enjoyed every minute.
Guys, thank you for joining us on the Fit Dads podcast. We'll see you in the next one.
See you soon.
Mate, thank you. Awesome.
No worries.
Really, really good.
No worries at all.
Amazing advice. Yeah, I appreciate that.